who you are, what you do, and how you built your, how you came to be online, what it is you do online.
Okay, so I'm Jamie. I'm 19 years old and I'm currently a digital marketing assistant at a company called Mitchell & Stones based down right at the very south in Southampton. So, gosh, my story, my journey has been a wild one. So I essentially entered the marketing industry in, I think it was September of last year. Started my new role, kind of wanted to get my foot in the door. A lot of people talk about like the different routes of getting into the industry. So there's things like internships, apprenticeships, university, things like that. And to be honest, I wasn't really expecting to go into an apprenticeship, but really, really wanted to get my foot in the door. Always been really passionate about sort of, excuse me, the content industry and social media, things like that. So yeah, I wanted to get my foot in the door and found this apprenticeship. So I joined Mitchell & Stones. And very much for me, it's just been a bit of a learning phase over the last year, just understanding what I'm really passionate about in the marketing space. I work in an agency that essentially we're an outsourced marketing department, right? So we offer so many different services. We do, lead gen, SEO, graphic design, you name it, we probably do it. So it's a lot of things to learn. So kind of we're encouraged to post on LinkedIn fairly regularly. So when I first started my role, I was kind of just posting, this is what I got up to today. This is a bit of apprenticeship work I've done, not really knowing much about personal branding at all. Kind of as time went on, I started to speak to creators, people like Izzy and Roman. Izzy was actually the first person I had a coffee call with from LinkedIn, which is really cool, and started to uncover this passion for personal branding and sharing my story, sharing my journey. So sort of fast forward to today, I've been posting consistently on LinkedIn for probably about maybe 6 months or so. And sort of the growth has been crazy. And for me, this time has been about finding my why, finding my goal. What do I want to achieve with LinkedIn? And through creating consistent content, there's so much opportunity that I've been able to generate and so many people that I've been able to meet. So yeah, it's been, it's a short journey. I'm very much at the start of my career. I'm not claiming to be, an expert at everything, but, being on LinkedIn and networking and building this authoritative network of people has been so beneficial for me. And definitely a journey that I'm really grateful for, really.
Awesome. So it's a wild ride already, and you're just at the start, really.
Yeah.
So obviously we're all going to be keeping a keen eye out to see where you're going with it all. So obviously you work full time, you're doing your apprenticeship. So how does building your personal brand fit around that? Because a lot of the ones that you'll see as you scroll LinkedIn are all CEOs, founders, freelancers, people who are trying to generate money directly from their personal brands. And that essentially isn't your goal right now. So how does posting online and posting on LinkedIn especially fit around your full-time job and help you in that?
It's a great question. And I think that there's so many different factors that I could talk about forever when it comes to building a personal brand alongside a full-time role. I think one of the things that's really important before you do start a personal brand is sort of understand the boundaries. One thing I'm conscious of is that, and I'm sure that Roman touched on this in his webinar, some companies aren't like uber flexible with personal branding. Some may have restrictions. So it's definitely something to be aware of before you try fitting it in. But I think one thing is very much be aware of your capacity. Kind of building a personal brand can take a lot of effort depending on how much time you want to put into it. So kind of get to grips on, how much can I feasibly do? How many posts can I create per week? Can I do 1, 2, 3? I think a lot of people that I speak to on a regular basis that are starting a personal brand, they're like, well, I saw this post and it says I should be posting 5 days a week and I should be posting, in the morning or in the evening. And I think that you need to throw all those expectations out of the window and you have to sit down and understand what is a feasible goal for me. What am I trying to achieve with my LinkedIn content? And again, like I said, kind of how feasible is the capacity? So for me personally, when I started the personal brand, I was putting a lot of time into it. And to be honest, not only was I kind of spending my lunch breaks engaging and stuff, I was also brainstorming content late at night because I'm a bit of a night owl. So it was a lot, and it was so worth me putting the time into, posting 5-6 days a week, and I was loving it. But I kind of hit a point of burnout, So that's something to be aware of, I think, is don't pour your heart and soul into it if you're not sort of ready to kind of face the consequences of that, because there is definitely emotional and mental impacts of it. So I've kind of sat down and set kind of different goals for where I want to go with my content now. And I post more like 3-4 days a week, and focus really on, what is my why? What am I trying to convey? A lot of my content is around sort of young professionals, especially like apprentices, people getting into the industry. There's a lot of talks about imposter syndrome, a lot of talks about, feeling like, I'm sat in this room and there's people with 10-20 years experience and I don't have that. And it's quite easy to feel like that when you're in like an agency role or in like another full-time role. You feel a lot of like head trash, as I call it. So it's important to kind of in summary, just find that capacity, identify that capacity, set a feasible goal. And that's kind of up for sort of discussion. It's for you to decide, really. Do you want to build an authoritative network alongside your role? Do you want to perhaps bring in new business for the company that you work for, which can always be promising, booking in calls and things like that? Do you want to just put yourself out there? Do you want to position yourself as an authority? There's so many different goals and so many different ways to approach it. But definitely be aware of that goal at all times and set out a bit of a plan as to not necessarily how many times a week do I have to post to hit this goal, but instead think, what type of content should I be posting and what messages should I be getting across to reach that goal, essentially. So that's kind of in summary, really. Just be really aware of that capacity, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's been a lot of conversation, especially recently, about burnout on platform. I think many people, obviously, at the beginning of the year, they go, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this, this, and this, and they go for it. And after a good few months, especially at this sort of stage, people realize that consistency is more than just, doing everything constantly. So it's really interesting to see how people have approached that and talked about that. So obviously you have talked a little bit about overcoming imposter syndrome via your own personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us a little bit of an insight into how you recognized imposter syndrome in the first place? Because I think that's a big step for a lot of people, is actually recognizing what it is they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then also how you sort of put steps in place to begin to overcome it.
It's a good question. I think for me, one of the first like telltale signs of imposter syndrome is spending a lot of your time comparing yourself to other people. And I do so much of that. Unfortunately, it's a very toxic trait of mine to sit there and like, they're maybe doing better than me or they know more than me. But I think the best way to combat that is to think of it differently and kind of switch up your mindset. And I think that's a bit of a buzzword and everyone says it. But the way that I think of it now is, you don't know less or more than anyone else. You just know different. And that's something that I carry with me a lot because, I do a lot of like SEO work in my role and a lot of people in the team don't have a grasp on that. I do the personal branding stuff and a lot of people in the team don't know a lot about that. But saying that, a lot of people in the team know things about PPC and lead generation that I don't. So it's all about acknowledging and respecting your own knowledge, being able to be a sponge and absorb the other knowledge that's floating around and just working on combating that comparison. Because the second that you combat that comparison and you focus on the development of yourself for yourself rather than the development of yourself for other people, that's when that imposter syndrome really starts to dwindle. And I think it's a bit of a misconception as well that to combat imposter syndrome, you have to position yourself as an expert. I don't think that's the case. I think really it's just a matter of sharing your triumphs, sharing the things that you're struggling with, because so many people will relate to you. I think it can be quite lonely, feeling imposter syndrome at times, because you're kind of like, I feel like I don't know enough. I feel like other people know more than me. But I think really it's just a matter of kind of just looking at that knowledge and thinking, other people may feel the same. Other people may be feeling those emotions. So try and relate to them and start a conversation as well. Be open about how you feel about your imposter syndrome. I have like calls with people and check-ins with people fairly regularly on LinkedIn, people that I've met through my network. And a lot of them say the same thing. People that I see as sort of authority figures in the space are feeling the exact same way that I am. So I think that really puts it into perspective that everyone feels it and it's okay to feel it, but it's just about trying to sort of switch that mindset up to make it more of a positive development experience rather than really struggling.
Fantastic. That's a brilliant response. I completely agree with your comment about comparison. I mean, as they say, comparison is the thief of joy, and I think it's something that can hold us back a lot. So we did have somebody ask a question just now, just as you were telling us a little bit about your story. So 1 second, let me find it. I believe it was Samuel who asked, when it comes to building personal brands, does it have anything to do with geographical location? So you've built, like you say, you've built quite a good community now of people of varying expertise and with varying journeys on their personal brand. So I imagine you can probably comment on this, seeing how many people you've got in your community at the moment.
Yeah,
so yeah,
sure.
does it have anything to do with geographical location?
It does and it doesn't. I think that the impact that your personal brand can have doesn't matter depending on where you are. I think that definitely your network and the way that you engage with other people may be slightly different. But I mean, to be honest, I mean, I've been in the UK the whole time, right? So I'm not exposed to perhaps the impact of that. And I know that the personal brand sort of scene or industry, I suppose, has grown a lot in the UK. So I can't really speak for those that are outside of the UK, really. But what I can recognize is that no matter where you are, I mean, the internet's a pretty bloody vast place, you know? So no matter where you are, you can create an impact if you stay true to your beliefs, stay true to your values, and stay true to your goals and share that with people. Because I think that personal branding, as long as you can convey your story and your emotions in a relatable way, that's all that matters. If people can understand and if people can sort of feel in touch with your emotions and your feelings, I don't think that the location of where they are, because I mean, my network is you know, largely UK based, but there's also have people in the US and Canada and Australia, things like that, but they can still resonate with my content because of the way that I articulate it. So yeah, I think it really just comes down to conveying your story and your journey in a way that other people can understand and appreciate, really.
Definitely, I completely agree. And I think obviously part of that comes from understanding who you're talking to, and obviously where they are. So, you know, a lot of what we talk about on day to day depends a lot on, you know, our location, our environment, everything like that. So that has a big part to do with it. And then also, you know, making sure that you can relate to people, and therefore I'm talking about things that they're going to care about. Oh, Izzy can't hear me. Can you hear me, Jamie?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, very strange. And now I can.
Izzy, is your volume turned off?
Have you turned it off and turned it on again?
That's always the fix.
I think
she's fixed it.
Oh, there we go. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Maybe I've got a little bit of different Wi-Fi or something. I think I keep freezing every now and then. So sorry if you catch me with a really awkward screenshot, guys. Something like that. Brilliant. So obviously, it's my understanding that you're very good with video content, and I've seen a bit of video content from you in my feed, and there's this big there's this big thing at the moment about whether or not, you know, video content is worth doing, whether it's better or anything like that. So can you give us your opinion on how video content has impacted your personal brand and how you feel it sits within, you know, the format of being good or bad?
I think video content has been absolutely invaluable for me. So for the people that kind of aren't really caught up with it, so I started a podcast. Gosh, I don't know how long ago it was now, but it was quite a while ago, perhaps similar time to when I started posting consistently on LinkedIn, so about 6 months ago now. But it's called the Jcp Podcast, and that stands for Junior Content Producer, which is the name of the apprenticeship that I do. And it was in partnership, or I was kind of co-hosting it with two of my colleagues that are also apprentices. And we kind of sat down in front of a camera, not really knowing what to talk about. And it was essentially similar to this, you know, we just have conversation about the space. And it was really an exciting experience for me to kind of dive into the world of video creation. I've always had video and content creation in my blood, you know. Like I said to you before we kicked off, Chloe, I used to do live streamings on Twitch. Bit different, you know. It was more like gaming and swearing at the camera and stuff like that and having a good laugh and whatever. But it works very similarly, live streaming versus kind of present day kind of video content, because you create longer form video content and you condense it down into clips. So that's what I did with the podcast. Was I used to make a bunch of like value filled clips, like strong points that I make in the podcast, and I post them on my LinkedIn. So not only was that sort of promoting the podcast in itself in a way, but also showing expertise and knowledge. And I think that the video content, especially on LinkedIn, is invaluable when you can get across a strong point in a really short amount of time in a direct way. I think that COVID and lockdown had a huge effect on it. People's attention spans shortened a lot. I noticed that. I mean, this is why TikTok is so huge, right? Because we spend a lot of time just digesting really short form video. So if you do create video content, I think it's great to get into a habit of filming maybe longer form or even just short form content. Sit down for half an hour and film like, I don't know, 5-10 videos talking about different points that you might make and upload them. You don't really need to even edit them that much. Maybe add some subtitles and stuff like that and just upload them. And I think that it's really good because what you can do is develop something called a parasocial bond with your audience, where it's like they feel like they know you really well. You're nurturing a relationship with them, even though you've never even met them. And I think there's a huge amount of that on LinkedIn because, you know, like you speak to so many people every day and you engage with so many other creators and you feel like you're like best friends, but you've never even met. So I think video content definitely has the potential to do that and allows you to get a bit more personal with your audience and allow them to understand your personality and your quirks and your knowledge as well. So yeah, 100%. If you haven't done it already and you're thinking about creating video content, I 100% recommend that you give it a shot. And I am conscious it can be really uncomfortable sitting in front of a camera. I find formats like this a lot easier because it's conversational, but when I'm sat there, just me in front of a camera, I'm like, crap, what do I say? So it's easy to feel like that, but just kind of have a main point that you want to talk about and just let the words flow and articulate how you want to articulate, because it goes back to the whole point of a personal brand is it's called personal for a reason. And if you articulate yourself in a way that's really precise and really direct, then do that. If you like to waffle a little bit more and make a few more points, then do that too, because it allows you, you know, to tap into your audience and allows them to understand how you communicate. And it all just comes down to fostering those relationships, which I think is so important.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a place for video content on LinkedIn. I think it's one of those that obviously TikTok and Instagram become so big. So I think some people worry that LinkedIn isn't the place for it. But as you've proven, it can be really, really helpful for people to learn more about you. Although I totally understand this whole live events, fine, like that's okay. As soon as I'll have something that I want to say and I can just say it to myself. And as soon as I put a camera in front of me, I can't, like, I don't know what happens. I suddenly develop a stutter and just splutter over everything.
Yeah.
So off the back of that then, what would be your top 3 tips for creating video content for your personal brand?
It's a good question. Number 1, be very direct. I think the short form video content is short form video content for a reason. Obviously I made the point about, you know, communicate how you want to communicate, but try and make sure that there's sort of value nuggets hidden within that video content, right? Because if you want people to resonate and you want people to take something away and feel emotion from your content, you want to make sure that there is value points in there. So definitely, you know, you don't have to speak directly to the camera, get the point across and end it. But what I'm saying is when you communicate, definitely have that value in there. And you can do that by maybe just writing some cue cards, just write a few things that you want to cover in the video. So say if I was doing a video about personal branding, I could talk about like the impact of personal branding, or like talking about different types of content, like little subheadings that I know I want to cover within that short form video content. So definitely do that. Number 2 as well is just don't be afraid. It goes back to the point of that I made of sort of a lot of people think about video content and they think about it a bit more, and they're like, no, you know, I'm not cut out for this, or, you know, I've never done it before, and I can't, you know, meet the standards of some other video creators that may have like, you know, personal video editors and things like that. That doesn't matter. I mean, you can just sit in your bedroom and whack your phone out and just record a video like that. It doesn't matter about the aesthetic of the video. It's just about the value and the emotion that you can convey. So definitely do that. And I think lastly, just make sure that your video content is sort of relevant to your overall goal and perhaps your industry as well. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. This is quite subjective. Like for me personally, I know that I want to kind of tap into the world of young professionals and be relatable and be like someone that they can come to for advice with. We can all kind of learn together because I'm a young professional, they're a young professional. So when I was on the podcast and I was creating clips, I made sure that the content within it was about young professionals or about the importance of LinkedIn and different learnings that I feel other people can relate to. So those are kind of like the main three things, I think.
Awesome. There we go, from the man himself. So we've had a couple of questions pop up, so we're going to go through those. Firstly, Izzy has asked, how would you recommend people go ahead finding what content to post, i.e. content pillars? So I believe what Izzy is saying is how do people find their talking points? How did you find yours would be a good one as well?
So there's a few different things that I did. Firstly, using tools like Answer the Public, because what you can do is get a bit of a grasp of what questions are my target audience asking. So you can put in keywords like marketing, digital marketing, personal branding, or whatever industry you're in. And you can get like really popular questions that people are asking on search, and you can kind of convert that into video, which works really well for SEO, but I won't get too nerdy about that. But also it kind of proves that the content that you're providing has a purpose, and the people that you're trying to resonate with will resonate with it. Another thing that I do as well is when I get questions on LinkedIn, or I hear a conversation or a question being asked in the office, sometimes I make a video about that or make a statement about that, because again, it's all about, I think the whole purpose of content is either people trying to find answers or people trying to feel emotion. So if you think about the last time that you shared a piece of content, more than likely you shared it because it made you feel a type of way, whether it was, you found it funny or sad or emotional or motivating or whatever. So I think that kind of understanding what people are asking, it's almost like tapping into a pain point, I guess, in a way, because if they're trying to find the answers and then you give them the answers straight away, then your video is essentially invaluable to them. So yeah, definitely try and understand kind of what your target audience wants. And I know that's easier said than done, but using tools like Answer the Public and also using like comments to your advantage that you get, I think is really great. I think when it comes down to setting up content pillars as well, because I know that's something that you mentioned, Izzy, I think it's really important to have like a nice variation of content. So when I do content strategy for my clients and also for myself, I'll set up pillars of like promotional content and community building content, nurturing content, things like that. So you can do videos that are quite fun at times. They don't have to be always value driven. Sometimes you can be like, this is me in my new office, or this is me out walking my dog and whatever. So it can also be personal video content. So it's all about just having a nice mixture of, nurturing those relationships, but also providing value. And then you can also be promotional if you like, promoting services or promoting the company that you work for. There's so many different ways you can get a message across in video content. There's no like strict one way of doing it. There's not, you don't have to sit down and do a Stephen Bartlett and just give immense value every time. Sometimes it's okay to just talk at a camera and just see what comes out, really. So yeah, I think variation is super important.
100%. I think sometimes that sort of unprepared, or maybe not unprepared, but unregimented way of generating video content can work out the best. I mean, like we've seen Stephen Bartlett sitting down, just having conversations with people, but they're, people whose opinions are cared about and who have interesting lives, and so obviously people want to know a little bit more. And I think a lot of us don't give ourselves enough credit about how interesting we are, or how interesting people may find us in our lives. So, and if anything, this creator series has definitely proved that, because so many people are interested in what the creators that I've spoken to are up to and what they're doing and how they came to be doing it. So thank you for that. Roman asked a question, which I was also going to ask myself, actually. This is a really good one. How do you go about repurposing content that you've already made on LinkedIn into videos? So if you've just written a post and it's done really well, maybe even added a picture, how would you go about converting that into video format?
That's a good question. I think it's about, similarly to how I kind of spoke about approaching it earlier. So come up with the main points from the post that were really stand out. So sort of like the purple cow, the most hooky points, the most interesting points from the post, and turn them into talking points. So say if you do a value-driven post of like, I don't know, this is a great way that I learned how to post on LinkedIn. This is a new strategy that I've learned. Kind of do like a step-by-step on how you would do it and then talk it through. Again, just articulate it how you want to articulate it. You don't have to like write a script or anything. None of the videos or podcasts or anything that I've ever done have been scripted. You know, they're all kind of just, I have a few talking points and let me just waffle about them for a little while and see what kind of comes out, see what golden nuggets come out. So similar sort of approach, really, just kind of generate a bit of a summary of the post, get those main points, sit down and record it, see kind of what comes out, edit it down, and then post it wherever you want to post it, really. So yeah, that's how I would do it.
Awesome. We're all going to be going off now thinking, okay, right, I've got to turn this into a video. So Niall's also asked, and this is another really good one, what does your schedule look like in regards to you building your own community on LinkedIn as well as working a full-time job? Because I know I could happily spend literally a whole day on LinkedIn, and I have to really like be strict with myself to make sure I don't. But obviously there's loads of people that I really want to talk to and chat with on there, like Niall and Roman and Matt. So yeah, how do you balance your time?
So originally there was no balance of time. So originally, kind of when I started out, when I was posting a lot, it would be, you know, I'd every morning when I get into the office, I'd spend like 20 minutes, half an hour, either coming up with post ideas or engaging. So every day, even now, I block out 20 minutes in my day at some point to engage with other creators and comment on posts and things like that. But kind of originally what I was doing was I was doing that engagement, and then I'd get home from work and I'd sit there for like 3-4 hours just continuously engaging and generating new content ideas, and anything that would pop into my brain I would just take a note of. And it was a lot, you know, it was essentially like a 12-hour day, and that wasn't really feasible. So kind of what I do now, very much just kind of spur of the moment. I have a very active brain, which is such fun, but also my worst downfall at times. But like throughout the day when I'm working and experiencing new things, I'll come up with a post idea and I'll just write a note of it. I use Notion, so I'll just take a little note of it and kind of revisit it. So kind of get up, get into work, 20 minutes engaging or so. And then at lunchtime, like I'll have my lunch, and then maybe I'll do like 20 minutes just drafting a post or two. And then like I get home from work, I mean, I'm lucky to work 8 till 4. So I kind of count that 4 till 5 period as kind of continued work hours. So I'll sit there and I will kind of continue the draft of the posts, write them up. And then kind of the next morning they'll get posted. So it's a continuous cycle for me, but don't get caught up in like, I mean, there's people like Niall that literally engage with so many people. Every time I scroll on my feed, Niall's commented or Niall's liked. It's an awesome tactic if you can fit it in. But I think also don't get caught up in trying to do that all the time, because it can be quite draining and can kind of push you to hit capacity a lot quicker. So yeah, just really it's just about finding the balance that works best for you. I don't think there's like a set, you know, you see like the influencer day in the life where it's like I wake up at 4 a.m. and I have a cold shower. It's not like that. But really it's just about looking at your work day. You know, do I have 10-20 minutes where I can just have a little brainstorm? Let's do it. You know, have I got a bit of time in between client meetings to just engage? You can engage everywhere. You know, you can engage while you're walking to the shop on your lunch break. You can engage, I don't know, when you're out on a smoke break or getting a bottle of water, or even if you're on the loo, if you like that. I mean, I don't, but if you want, then by all means, you know, there's plenty of kind of small gaps in the day for you to do that. And just don't get caught up on blocking out loads of time, because you don't need it. Just try and be flexible and do what you can, but don't push yourself to do more than that, because again, this is where that sort of burnout and that capacity point comes back to. And I think that whole thing I spoke about earlier about sort of getting caught up with, I have to post this amount of times a week, or I have to engage this amount every week. You don't have to do that. I'm kind of able to continue nurturing and developing my personal brand, even though I've reduced the posts. Yeah, my vanity metrics have taken a hit quite largely as a result of it, but that doesn't really matter because there's so much more to developing a personal brand than just those metrics. You know, there's people that kind of just shop you and don't engage. There's people that watch your content for a long period of time and may interact with you or your business. And there's so many other measurables other than just vanity metrics. So working around what's best for you and trying to detach yourself a bit away from how many followers can I get in the quickest amount of time, I think is the most feasible way of doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you start looking at quality over quantity, that's when you start seeing the real tangible results. And a little fun fact for you. Did you know that something like 76% of people go on their phone whilst on the toilet?
Wow. Well, there you go. I
So
mean,
it seems like you're one of the minority there.
I am, yeah. I try not to. It's like my reduction of screen time moment, because it's bad for
Your
the people
peace
that
and
have seen
quiet.
it. Yeah, it's a moment for me to detach while I'm on the loo.
Well, we've had a couple other questions. So Niall did say that Izzy tells him off a lot for being on LinkedIn too much,
And so she should.
which definitely tracks. I think Niall's commented on like every post I've ever done, and it's
Yeah.
always like very soon after posting.
Yeah.
Izzy has asked, do you believe it will be possible to monetize your audience with your personal brand as a side hustle or alongside your full-time working?
It's a good question, and I think it's on a case-by-case basis. It goes back to the point I made about understanding your boundaries, like within your role, because some companies may have kind of contractual agreements regarding that. But I think even then that doesn't necessarily matter, because I think one thing that is commonly disregarded about kind of building a LinkedIn personal brand early on is that you can sort of nurture straight away. You can nurture leads, you can nurture future business. I mean, I started my personal brand when I was 18 years old, and now I have, so long to continue to nurture potential business in the future. Say if I wanted to go freelance or want to start my own agency or whatever, there's so much opportunity to monetize it. You may not be able to monetize it straight away. I mean, if you work within a company that allows for kind of side hustles or freelance work, then by all means you can definitely monetize it, just by providing that consistent value and sharing expertise and sharing your journey. I mean, I've been able to myself as a result of my personal brand without even trying, because it's never really been my goal to sort of generate business from it. Really, for me, my main goal on LinkedIn is building an authoritative network and breaking down the barriers of the people that you perceive as untouchable, because it's quite easy to get in contact with anyone really if you try hard enough. So that was always my goal, but kind of as a secondhand sort of result of me posting regularly, I was able to generate like discovery calls for the company, in which you can like get commission and things like that. So not necessarily a side hustle, but there's definitely ways of generating income, even if like you're working for a company that may restrict like freelancing and stuff like that. But don't shut off to the idea of nurturing future leads, because if they've been following you for 3-4 years and they see you growing and see your knowledge expanding, it makes it so much more appealing to them to kind of work with you, because they know that you've grown and they followed your journey, they've built a relationship with you in that time, and that makes that sales process and that client sort of client and manager relationship so much better. So yeah, definitely something to bear in mind when you're posting. It's not about the short term, it's about the long game. Short term virality will never have as much value as that sort of long term consistency. Is definitely something that I bear in mind quite a lot.
100%. I love it when people understand that and stop chasing virality, because it is so short-lived and it's so like quick and there you go, virality, and then it sort of peters out again, and it can be really hard to then keep chasing that. Yeah, I really like what you say there about it being a long-term process, and it definitely is. And obviously, just because you are employed full-time, that doesn't mean that you can't build your personal brand, and it doesn't mean that you can't focus on generating a community or building an audience online, because as you say, it can be used for building relationships with potential future employers or future clients. It can be used to learn from other people and learn from people's mistakes, hone your skills. And it can be used to get in touch with experts and, like you say, the sort of untouchables that actually, when you start posting a bit online and building a bit online, they are much more touchable without sounding weird. And oh, we've got a bit of love here, a bit of agreeing here. And we've got a little conversation going on in the comments about scheduling content. So how do you feel about scheduling content? Obviously, I imagine it's something that would help you with time management, but is it something that you do?
So me personally, I don't think I've ever scheduled LinkedIn content. And the reason for that is because I'm very sort of true to understanding my capacity. And I know that by scheduling content, I will have to spend a longer amount of time scheduling posts. So as an example, I went on a trip to the US for about a week and a half, and I didn't post for that whole time. And for me, whilst it would have been great to schedule content, it doesn't feel personal to me. I think one of the biggest things for developing my personal brand is I always want to be touchable in a non-weird way. I always want to be able to respond to people and start conversation and be present on the platform. So I think definitely scheduling content is fab, and I do it for a lot of my clients because like you say, it can save time and it can be really useful when you're busy, whether you're working in a full-time role and stuff like that. But I think for me personally, I like just if I can't fit a post in, I can't fit a post in, and I'm sort of honest and kind of true to myself with that, because like I say, I like to be present. But definitely if you're limited on time, really limited on time, if your company is very closed off about the idea of you spending time 20 minutes 30 minutes in your workday kind of engaging, creating content, then definitely schedule posts. Try not to sort of post and ghost to a degree. I think it's really important to engage with your audience after you post. But if it's really not that feasible, then that's totally okay. But because again, like I said, there's no set rules to this. There's no recipe to personal brand success. The whole point of a personal brand is being truly authentic. And I'm a firm believer that there's an audience out there for everyone. Whether it's a positive or negative audience, I suppose, is the other question. But it depends on kind of what things you get across. But just post at your frequency, post however you want to post, engage however you want to engage, and the relevant people will come and kind of engage with you in return. So yeah, it definitely has its place, but for me personally, I don't.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I've been known to sort of do it a little bit here and there, but I struggle with it because one, I forget that I've scheduled posts and then they go live and I've posted and ghosted by accident. And two, I feel like, I struggle to then think of stuff in advance. A lot of posts I just do on a whim or with, a day's notice of an idea. I think it's great for people who are better organized than obviously myself. And but yeah, it's a really interesting thought there. And I have heard people say that when you schedule content, it doesn't perform as well. Although I think I've seen that a lot on Instagram, people scheduling reels and they're not performing as well, which is very interesting and something which I think would be nice to see a bit more research on.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a couple of questions for you, and then I'm just going to hand over to our guests to see if they have any more questions for you. Now, I'll be honest, this is probably the hardest question I've been asking everybody when they come on to this series, so brace yourself. So, if you could travel back in time and speak to yourself at the beginning of this journey, so obviously before you started your apprenticeship, what a piece of advice would you give to yourself?
Wow, I see why it's a difficult question. I think for me, definitely stop living and doing for other people is a huge thing for me, and something that I think I've learned a lot throughout sort of not only my personal brand journey, but also like my journey in the professional space for the first year. I spent a lot of like my teenage sort of very early adulthood years just kind of doing things because they were expected of me. And I think that I've come to understand a lot more that life is truly worth living when you do things because you want to do them. So prime example of that is I've kind of softened it a little bit, but on LinkedIn, I was kind of very well known for very strong opinions about young professionals. Some that may be very subjective. Some people may find them, they may not agree. But I think it's a really good example of sticking to your guns, sticking to what you believe in, sticking to what you're passionate about, and living through it. Because unfortunately, the thing with social and sometimes what can happen is when people create content, they're sort of molded by society and molded by the people that engage with them. I don't agree with this. I think you should look a certain way. You see all these influencers online and you're like, I should be acting like this, I should be posting like this. You shouldn't be. You see a lot of my photos on LinkedIn, it's actually just a selfie of me like just sat in my car, or it's like a really poor quality photo, or just something I feel provides a bit more context. But I do that because it's like completely me. And I'm sure that anyone that creates content regularly has had the fair share of like not very nice comments and people saying, you should be like this, or I've had people make fun of my appearance and things like that as well. But despite all of that, I will still honestly and transparently live my life how I want to live it, because life's too short. And I know that's pretty rich coming from a 19-year-old, but it is, and I feel that I'm so much happier now that I do things because I want to do them. I'm in the marketing space because I really enjoy it. Other people in my family may be like, well, you just get paid to sit and scroll on social media all day, that good old one. But I do it because I love it, and I don't need that validation from other people. So yeah, 100%, I would definitely say stop caring so much about what other people think, because a lot of the people that are giving you rubbish now, giving you crap now, they won't matter in 2-3 years. Being wholly yourself is the most fulfilling thing that you can do in your life, and no matter what anyone else says, it's so rewarding.
I absolutely love that. That was a brilliant response. I think that's definitely up there, one of the best responses to that question we've had
I'll take
about
it.
this series. Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I always tell people to live a bit more selfishly, because so many people these days are so worried about everyone else and what everyone else thinks and making sure everyone else is okay, when actually, as the saying goes, when you get on your airplane to go to lovely nice holidays, put your own mask on before helping others, so that you can always be stronger for others. If you put yourself first, you're always going to be the best version of yourself, which means that you'll actually be able to do everything else for everyone else probably better. And yeah,
100%.
it means that sometimes you're going to have to piss a few people off or say, look, I don't have time for you, or I have to prioritize me first, but do it.
Yeah, for sure.
That was a brilliant answer. So my second question, not quite as hard as that one, it's, can you tell us about a podcast or a book or a resource that has really helped you in either your personal or professional journey so far?
So it's actually a book that I was put onto by my tutor in my apprenticeship, and it's called Whatever You Think, Think the Opposite, and it's by a guy called Paul Arden. And essentially the whole point of the book is completely flipping the script of what you think is normal, right? So it goes back to the point I just made about living your life for yourself. So it talks a lot about being the sheepdog and not the sheep, and being really disruptive in your thought process. So like I'm quite proud. So when I first started my role at Mitchell & Stones, I think it was within my first 2 weeks, I was like, I think this could be better. It's all about being like really disruptive and identifying processes and identifying a weaker sort of actions and ways of thinking, and looking at them and thinking, how can this be better? How can I improve? And it goes back to the whole self-development thing. I think self-development is so important, not only in your professional life, but also in your personal life. And the book very much talks about just throwing away every, stereotype that you've ever thought, and just thinking, what is my opinion on this? What is my true opinion on this situation? Not what do they think? What does my mum think? What does my friends think? What do you think? And you stick by that. And it's like, it also talks a lot about sort of the professional world. So writing CVs in a certain way and going to interviews in a certain way. There's a lot of like black and white rules when you're kind of career hunting and when you're in your career. But the whole book is essentially about, throw all those away. There's no linear path to career progression. It's okay to go up and then down and then up and then down again. But kind of sticking to your guns and being disruptive and wanting to provoke change, it talks about how important that is. And I think that for me has really helped define the progression of my career, because I think if I just kind of sat as a cog in the machine, making teas and coffees, doing the basic level sort of criteria for my apprenticeship, you know, I probably wouldn't have progressed as quickly as I have. But I think because I have, you know, been able to disrupt within, you know, within Mitchell & Stones, and I've been able to disrupt through my LinkedIn content, and also disrupt my own way of thinking, it's kind of pushed my growth way up. And as a result of that, it may plummet back down again. But the thing is, it's totally okay, because as a disruptor and as someone that thinks differently to societal norms, that's to be expected. But it's all about reframing that mindset to, I'm down, how can I get back up again? What else can I disrupt? What else can I change? What other thoughts can I give? So yeah, it's a really powerful book, and I definitely recommend you should check it out if you haven't already.
Wow, I definitely think you sold a few of us on that already. I will definitely be checking that out, because
Awesome.
I love that sort of alternative thinking, and when people really do go, yeah, I mean, you could do this, but what about this? And
Yeah.
you know, even if you don't agree, sometimes it's so addictive to read about, like, you know, how they viewed that and how they've researched that. And so thank you, I'll definitely be looking that up.
Of course.
Everybody's raving about you in the comments, saying about how wise you are. And oh, look at that, Chris has already ordered it. Fantastic.
Wow. Speedy.
I think you
I
need
love
to get
it.
in contact with the author and get some
Commission.
referral scheme going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hand over, we've got about 10 minutes left. I'm just going to hand over to the guests and see if anybody else has any other questions for you, either about your personal branding, about video content, or about yourself. So everybody joining us, does anyone have any questions for Jamie that we haven't already covered?
Hit me.
This is where we have to give everyone a second to like
Yeah, type
Obviously,
away.
we're all creators, so they'll type furiously. And then I'm just going to have a look and see if we've missed anything.
Freaking girlfriend reveal. She's not here with me, unfortunately, today.
Otherwise, she'd have dramatically flounced into the scene, looking beautiful in the background.
One day. Yeah, one day we'll get on a coffee call.
And Roman will be there waiting.
Of course. I did actually just see, I think Chris asked a question like 8 minutes ago, and I don't know that I answered it, but he said, how important is sharing weaknesses, unproductive periods, and behind the scenes / processes? And I actually have a response for that. I think that sharing the ups and the downs are equally important. You know, I think one of my posts that seemed to resonate quite a lot was a post where I talked about going through an ADHD diagnosis. And that to me is really personal. That's really behind the scenes. That's something that, you know, I would have felt really uncomfortable talking about to people, because I think for a lot of years I felt that the way that I thought was quite different to other people. The way that I process things and my emotions are a lot different. So I kind of shared that. I was extremely vulnerable, and a lot of people seem to resonate. So I think it is really important. I'm not saying sit there and be like, you know, my family members just passed away and I'm really sad about it. I'm not saying, you know, get really vulnerable. I mean, if you want to do it, by all means, go ahead if you feel people will find value. But I think that share your ups and your downs, share your struggles. You know, this is something that I did in my role today. This is, you know, like a mistake I made that I'm learning from, or, you know, this is something that I've been struggling with recently that I feel that other people can relate to. And I think it's one thing to share the struggle, but it can also be great if you can provide a solution to that. So yeah, definitely personal brand is a personal brand because it's personal. So remember that. And don't be afraid to open yourself up. It doesn't have to be, you know, I'm Jamie and I'm a marketing assistant. It can be, I'm Jamie and I'm going for an ADHD diagnosis, and these are things that I've learned. These are things that I've messed up during the start of my career. And this is how I'm learning from them. This is how I'm improving. And like I said, that those ups and those downs are so important to creating a full picture of your personality and allowing people to resonate with you a lot more. And it allows those relationships that you form as a result of your content to be so much stronger. So yeah, definitely tap into that more emotional side when you're thinking about content at times. I think it can be extremely valuable.
I love that. That was a brilliant response. And I think obviously the whole purpose of social media, its original purpose was to connect people and to allow people to find other people who can relate to them and their experiences. And in order to find those people, you have to share your experiences and the things that you want people to relate to, and obviously give them a chance to either help or learn from you. So another question from Chris: what advice would you give to someone considering but who knows nothing about marketing yet?
I was that person about 3 years ago. I'd heard about marketing. I did like a week's work experience when I was in school with a marketing agency. Didn't have a clue what it was, but I think, as with any hobby and with any passion, it comes down to building a foundation of knowledge. So you can do that through like free resources. Everyone's heard of the Google Fundamentals, Digital Garage sort of thing. Maybe try that out, and build a foundation of knowledge and truly understand, is it something that I'm passionate about? Because like with any hobby, whether you're playing the drums, playing a guitar, getting into the gym, whatever, you kind of try it out and you get a bit of a grasp and a bit of an understanding before you step into it sort of head first. So definitely build a foundation. And then from there, if it's something that you're passionate about and you want to continue with it. And I think my favorite thing about the marketing industry is that, especially on social, there's so many people that think differently, so many disruptors, and so many people that you can converse with every day. And I think that without sort of LinkedIn and without my network and without my personal brand, sort of my knowledge of marketing would probably be a lot less. But because the marketing industry is like sort of like a big room of the most creative thinkers and the most disruptive thinkers and everything like that, you can sort of bounce ideas off of each other and build a knowledge foundation really quickly. So definitely focus on building that foundation, and then from there tap in and focus on nurturing relationships with other marketers and pick their brains a little bit. There's no shame in that. There's no shame to going to someone, I'm not really sure how to do this. How would you approach it? Some people may be a bit standoffish about that, but it doesn't hurt to ask. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So yeah, definitely just be a sponge as well, and absorb knowledge from other people and use that initial foundation of knowledge to come up with your own ideas and solutions to kind of elements within marketing, basically. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Jamie. Yet again, another brilliant response.
Of course.
So what a conversation. That was absolutely incredible. And it's been really, really interesting to hear all of this from the perspective of somebody who isn't building a personal brand for right now. So it's been a really, really interesting take on that. So thank you for that.
Of
I'm
course.
going to give everybody a second to give you lots of love in the comments, because we tend to get a nice amount of love through the emojis and comments and everything. So I'll give everyone a second to do that.
Thank you, guys. Very kind.
Whilst I say thank you very, very much for joining me this evening, joining us
Of course.
this evening.
It's been fun.
It really has, and the hour has gone very, very quickly. I don't know about anybody else, but it's definitely how I feel. I will 100% be following up on this book recommendation.
Yeah, definitely.
And for everybody else, I will be basically compiling everything you've just told us into a nice email and sending that off along with the recording of this so everyone can watch again. And I'll also send it over to you so you can share as much as you like.
Awesome. Sounds good.
And yes, yet again, thank you. And thank you for everybody who's joined us this evening as well. I hope everybody has a lovely evening. Jamie, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, just thank you for being the audience on my first ever webinar. So yeah, it's very exciting, and perhaps many more to come. We'll see.
We will do. We'll all be watching very closely, I'm sure. All right. Well, thank you very much then. Thank you, everybody, guys. Have a lovely evening, weekend, week, and we will see you over on the feed.
Yeah, we'll do. See you later, guys. Thank you.
Goodbye then, everybody.
Bye.